Welcome to the Wayne Bennett Podcast, celebrating West Virginia's people, places, and the culture of Southern Appalachia. Now here's your host, Wayne Bennett.
Welcome to Wayne Bennett's Podcast. I'm your host, Wayne Bennett, and this is episode 150. It's September the 26th, 2024. It's a rainy Thursday, and our area has been looking forward to a little bit of rain. We've had about a 3-month drought, and so the rain is welcome. Our guest today is from a noted Beckley family, and he himself is a philanthropist, and he's a musician, a singer, and Michael Farris, welcome.
Well, thank you for having me, Wayne.
Tell us a little about your grandfather, Gus Farris.
My grandfather was named Gudis Farris, which is Gus Farris. He was born in Salima, Lebanon. Salima is a mountain city 40 miles from Beirut. So back then, Beirut was a resort. He lived with his family in Salima. He worked in a silk factory. There were 5 silk factories at that time. They were prosperous, but what happened is the same thing that happens today in America. Japan started producing silk cheaper, so the factories closed, out of business. He decided at the age of 17 to come to the United States of America, where his older brother, named Maroon, lived in Washington, D.C. He was a candy maker. He had a candy shop, so he came to the United States. First attempt, couldn't do it. He was in France. There was a plague going on, and Ellis Island was closed. So he went back to Salima. About a year later, decided to try again, and he heard that it was easier to come through South America. So he actually went to South America and entered the United States that way. He went to D.C., worked with his brother, learned how to make candy. Their big jobs were the boardwalk in New Jersey in the summer months. They had a small candy shop there. At some point, I don't know how many years after he was making candy, he moved to Texas and started working for a gentleman that had a clothing store. Heard about a job in West Virginia. Coal fields were starting to boom. He came in 1901, I think, actually. He came, worked there a couple years, went back to Salima, Lebanon, the age of 30, married my 14-year-old grandmother. But my aunts would always say she was 15 when the baby was born.
Well, no, was this an arranged marriage? Or?
I have asked that question, and my aunts would never say yes or no. The only response they would give is, nobody's arranging my marriage. But they would never actually say it was an arranged marriage. So then he comes to Charleston, works for a guy that owns a store called People's Department Store. Had 2 children, the 2 oldest children. They had 10 kids altogether on my dad's side. Then at some point in time, a man in New York contacted him and told him he had a lot of unpaid debts that needed to be collected in a little old town called Beckley, West Virginia, because he supplied pack peddlers with merchandise. So Granddad decided to take that job. He came to Charleston, was successful with collections, then heard about a business that was for sale in Beckley, West Virginia called the Rocket Store. He moved to Beckley with his wife and 2 kids, bought the Rocket Store, operated that business for 80 years, named it Farris Department Store.
Now, the pack peddlers used to go to these mining camps and towns and sell goods, and a lot of the early families in Beckley, the Ray Halls and Ramey's, and some of them were the pack peddlers. And your grandfather actually sold to them too, didn't he?
Yeah, he really was not a pack peddler. He supplied pack peddlers with merchandise. And they'd go out with their horses and wagons and sell. As a matter of fact, when he first came to Beckley, he was friends with Nick Rahal. And Granddad and Nick Rahal bought a building in downtown Neville Street, which today would be Chase Bank, because Beckley National Bank approached them and wanted that property to build their first bank. So they sold that building, and then he moved farther down Neville Street and bought a building, which was remodeled several times through the years.
Where was exactly Farris Discount or Farris Store?
Farris Department Store was at 313 Neville Street. And that building, actually, when my uncle decided he was going to sell it, was sold to Dan Bickey. Oh, okay. And Dan Bickey did major remodeling on it and put in an Irish pub.
All right.
So that's the original location. And as a matter of fact, when he first got that building, the top floor was apartments. And grandmother's brothers came to this country and actually lived on the top floor of that building for many years.
Wow. Now, your grandfather and grandmother had 5 boys and 5 girls.
5 boys and 5 girls in 19 years.
Wow. And your dad and a brother became dentists.
That's correct. Boy, you've done some homework here.
And, well, actually, your dad used to be my dad.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah, my dad was in private practice, and then he entered World War II, and when he came back from World War II, he was in private practice for not a long time, and then he decided to take a position as the dentist at the local VA hospital, and that's where he worked until retirement. My dad met my mother during the war in Germany. My mom was a retired Army nurse. No foolishness. I had wonderful parents, but if she told you something, she expected you to respond immediately. She had 11 years in the Army.
Wow.
She saw the worst part of World War II. So she really didn't encourage her children to go the route of a military career because, as I said, she could tell you about surgery in a tent.
Did your dad's family live in Pemberton at one time?
No, they always lived in Beckley on East Main Street.
Okay.
Granddad bought a small farmhouse. It's across from the YMCA, the stone house over there. It's now CPA office. So at some point in time, he moved that farmhouse on a back lot, built the stone house.
Yeah. Now there's Farris families from Sophia, Golda Farris. Do you remember that? And then there was a Michael Farris from Bluefield that was a businessman and also ran for office one time. Any relation that you know?
No relation. I know there was a Michael Farris that was governor of Virginia at some point in time, but they are not. They spelled their name wrong. I think they spell it Farres.
Oh, okay.
And I'm Faris, so that they are not related to my dad's family.
Now, your granddad was in business 80 years.
80 years.
But the last few years, you had 2 or 3 aunt and uncles that ran the business.
What happened was, probably in the 60s, granddad gave that business to 2 sons and 2 daughters. But he left the real estate to all his kids. So I had 2 uncles and 2 aunts that ran that business. They worked there 60 years.
Wow. And it's funny, the families that came from Lebanon that settled in Beckley, that almost all of them at one time or another were in the retail business. I mean, you had, of course, the Ray Halls, and then you had Sam Ray Hall, who spelled his name with only 1 L. And you had the Michael family, the Ramey family, the Bashars, I guess.
Corey's.
Who?
Corey.
George, Corey. Mm-hmm. Gosh, it was and it was hard work, retail business.
I think it was long hours. They worked long hours. They put everything they had into their business, and they were successful people because they worked hard. My grandfather's clothing store sent 10 kids to college, so he was successful.
Wow. Now, at one time, your dad and his brother, Jim, is it his name?
Uncle Jim was also a dentist.
They were dentists. And I was talking to somebody one day, and I said, at the same time, there was two Shoemate brothers that were dentists in Beckley. There were the Daniels brothers that were doctors, and the Hedrick brothers that were doctors. There was like, and the Richmond, Dr. Richmond, there was two brothers. There's like 5 sets of doctors or dentists that were in a small town like Beckley.
Well, I used to know all the dentists. I don't today. I can't name them all today.
I can't either.
Yeah.
But my family used to go to your dad, and then of course when he kind of let us know when he was going to start phasing out, and we changed. But my youngest son, your dad was so energetic, and I mean he was even near retirement age. He was one of those guys that was always funny and smiling. But he and your mother were very active in the community. I know I can remember once your mother was kind of heading up the Say No to Birth Defects program, and your dad was really active in the church at St. Francis. He's president of the PTO, and he helped start the Boy Scouts.
I don't know that story. That might have been Uncle James. I know Aunt Isabel helped start the Girl Scouts.
Okay.
She was one of the first ladies that helped organize that group.
Now, tell me a little bit about your childhood. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Beckley, West Virginia, on Woodlawn Avenue. My dad had a house at Flat Top Lake, so we were there a good bit of the time. I went to private school for 8 years.
Where did you go to school?
St. Francis.
Okay.
Came out in the 9th grade, and it was a big change. I was shocked that people talked in the hallway and in the bathroom. But we got through it, we got through it. I was just, my parents, I guess they set the standard a little high. They were just strict disciplinarians. These new mom and dads today, I see them look at their kids and count to 3. Well, June Farris would not do that. If she told you something, she meant for you to do it. She might knock you across the room and give you 3 to get up. But, she demanded respect, but she showed you respect.
Now, somewhere along the lines, you took music lessons, didn't you?
As a kid, yes, I took piano lessons for several years from a lady called Helen Sloan. She was a neighbor. She lived, 5 or 6 houses up the street, and I'd come around from school and walk to piano lessons. I actually wanted to major in music, but my parents said, no, you're not going to do that because you need to do something where you can support yourself. And I don't think you can always enjoy music, but, my parents' advice that way was, we're going to send you to college, 4 years. If you kids want graduate school, you're on your own. If you want to get married, that's a wonderful decision, but you get your education first. And we're going to tell you right now, no house is big enough for 2 families. So when you get married, you're not going to come back here.
Kicking out of the nest.
Well, I see that.
What kind of activities were you involved with as a youth growing up?
Well, I never really did any sports that were sponsored at school, but I've always been on a bicycle. I still ride today. I'm getting up in years, and my max trip today is probably 25 miles. And once I get to 25, I got to stop. I'm just getting too old to do it. But I don't want to quit doing it. I enjoy being out. I always was involved with music at the church, sang with the choir. When I was in college, became interested in organ. Wanted to learn to play an organ. I could read music, I could play piano, but you don't walk in on an organ like you do a piano. It's two different things. So when I graduated, I took some private lessons with people. At one point in time, not too long ago, I was the only person studying organ at Marshall University. I wasn't there for a degree, but I just needed to learn. And there was a professor there from South Africa, best sight reader I've ever seen in my life. I'm amazed what he could do. So he's helped me along the way. Plus, some organists that were local that no longer live here have master's degrees in organ performance. I took lessons from them, and I still try to play. I play for 2 churches today, so my Sundays are busy.
Wow. How do you do that? I mean, how do you...
Well, I have a 9:30 service at St. Stephen's Episcopal. Then I shoe leather it across town to the Methodists for 11 o'clock, but they understand that I'm kind of on call because I also substitute for First Baptist and Presbyterian. You just can't find people that can play a pipe organ. Kids don't want to learn to do that.
I was getting ready. The pipe organ's a whole different animal than the organ. I mean, isn't it?
It's a different technique.
Yeah.
Different technique. You have to learn how to use your feet and play pedals. I can remember gym teachers telling me in high school I wasn't coordinated, and I'm thinking, if I can keep both hands and both feet going at the same time, that's some type of coordination. It's got to be something. You have to learn how to set registration. It's just, I would never walk in on an organ I've never played and play a service.
Now you have 2 brothers and a sister?
I have 2 brothers and a sister.
I knew Fred,
Mm-hmm.
who was an outstanding teacher, and he was a very unique person. Quite a collector, wasn't he?
He liked cars. He liked cars. He collected antique cars, and he liked antique models. Fred, die-cast models, I guess is what you would call him. He passed away 3 years ago, and at the time we were trying to get estates in order and cleaning out things. He had over 1,000 die-cast models.
Wow.
He was quite a collector.
What happened to his cars and stuff?
He left them to me.
Oh, really good. You ever get into car shows or anything like that? Or?
Well, I am a member of the Antique Automobile Club of America. I don't have a collector car at this time. I knew some of his buddies that were interested in those vehicles. Some were drivable, some were not. When he passed away, he had cars I didn't even know about. So, and one of his buddies came and said, "Well, when are you going to get that Chrysler out of my garage?" I said, "Well, I didn't even know it was there in the first place." So, I didn't keep any. I've lost interest in antique cars. It's an expensive project, I think. By the time you insure them,
full-time job,
or you wait 3 months for a $200 part, it's just. But that's what he liked. So.
Yeah. Did he actually work on cars himself? Or?
He was not a mechanic. No, I mean, he could. I think he, like me, knew enough to determine whether somebody was doing him when he needed work done. But no, he always could detail them and that kind of thing. But no, he was not a mechanic.
Yeah. Now he was very active with the teachers' unions and outspoken, and when they were trying to get more money, more rights, those kinds of things. I know he and his friend Marie Hamrick were did a lot for the teachers' movement.
He was buddies with Marie for many years, and he took it very seriously, and because he believed in. Actually, his first degree was in landscape architecture, and he decided that's not what he wanted to do, and he was out working, I don't know how many years, not a long time, and went back to get his degree in education.
Now, your sister, Dr. Emily Meadows, she was the personnel director in Raleigh County and then retired from that, and I guess became the principal at St. Francis.
She wasn't the principal. I think there was a goal there to start a high school, pass higher grades. And she stepped out, retired and stepped out and took that position. But I think they eventually did not get enough people to make it a go. But my understanding was she was promised 3 years, and they pulled the plug after 2.
Yeah. Now, I don't know Felix. Is he a younger brother or an older brother?
Fred, Felix, Emily, Michael. He's the second.
Okay.
Felix never came back to live in Beckley after college. When he graduated, he had a job in Charleston, West Virginia. He's an accountant. He worked, I want to say it was Union Carbide. I think it's where he worked in he became good buddies with a guy, and they decided to move to Cumberland, Maryland, and open a business. They had a business where it was a commercial industrial type company. They sold PVC pipe. They maintained and serviced tanks, for example, oxygen tanks. Hospitals were a lot of their customers, or tanks that a restaurant would use in storing pop, that kind of stuff. So he worked there for a long time. He's I don't know if he sold that business a lot. I know he no longer works there.
Yeah.
He's retired.
Now, when you were in high school, I was teaching at Woodrow Wilson High School, and you graduated in 75.
I did.
Correct. And you were in the Junior Historians, the Science Club, the Boys State.
Yeah.
You were in the Select Choir. What kind of music did you listen to when you just?
Well, my favorite music is classical. I'm not good at playing it. I don't have that technique, but I listen to all kinds of music. If you look on my phone today and pull up Spotify, I've got blues, I've got rock and roll, I've got contemporary country, and you'll probably find several channels for pipe organ music.
Wow. Well, that's quite an eclectic group.
I like all kinds of music.
Now, I was over in D Wing when I was teaching at the bottom, D7, and I had Kathy Havansky in class.
Mm-hmm.
And she and a few friends would always come to my room and hang around at lunchtime because they didn't like to stay in the lunchroom, and that was permissible, and I was glad they would come. And I had a few other, and you always came down, well, not every day, but you come down to visit every once in a while. I never had you in school, but I assume you guys were friends. She was a very good student.
We have known each other since first grade.
Wow.
We went to grade school together, and then at the time, well, junior high was 7, 8, 9. I don't think that's the concept today. So she went to Beckley. I ended up at Park and then back again in high school. We grew up in the same church, so we were in the same youth groups.
What is she doing now? What is she?
She is employed currently with the VA Med Center.
Wow.
She has master's degree in social work. She used to work at the Beckley VA Med Center. I guess, I don't know if that's the proper term. It's probably some type of counselor. And a job came open in VA Med Center in Clarksburg, probably a year or so ago. And she's in Clarksburg working at the VA Med Center.
You graduated in 75. You guys are getting ready to celebrate a 50th.
Next year.
And it doesn't seem like it was that long ago.
Well, I guess everybody thinks once they're out of school, and I agree that time goes by very quickly, but next year is the 50th, and I understand a couple of buddies are working on a reunion. I don't know. I really don't know if that's going to
Have you had any reunions?
We have, yeah. We had, early on, we've had 10, 20, probably a 30-year one, and I don't feel in my heart really good attendance. We probably had 560 some kids, and we maybe get 100.
Now, after high school, you went to WVU?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of degree did you get?
My degree is in finance and investments. So, and I will say this one, I think I'm the only normal one in my family, because Emily graduated in 3 years. Felix and Fred took 5. I finished in 4.
You are normal.
Well, in some aspects.
Well, after you got out of WVU, did you go right into banking? Or
no. When I came out of WVU, my first job was with a John Deere dealership, and I worked in the finance department and also did a little bit of accounting. I mean, I'm really not an accountant, but I would get numbers and figures together, send them to the home office, and they would actually prepare the financials. But I would help the customers obtain financing for their equipment. Those backhoe loaders and equipment was very expensive, very expensive. I can remember about the first week in the office, one of these huge tires, a bill came through for it. It was over $2,000. And I thought, wow. And we're talking years ago.
Yeah.
Years and years ago.
Now, where was this at?
Crab Orchard, West Virginia. There was a John Deere dealership.
I didn't even know that.
Okay, then I left and took a job with one of my buddies in a mining supply company, helped them. That didn't last very long. They went out of business, okay? And then I got a job at Raleigh County National Bank as a lender. Raleigh County went through acquisitions and mergers. Prior to 1995, West Virginia was the only state east of the Mississippi where branch banking was illegal. You could have a branch office, but it had to be located X number of feet to the main office. So once that changed, you saw banks merge, you saw bigger banks come in and buy and acquire, and eventually that ended up as United Bank. And after 38 years, I said, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm tired of banking. And I, I left, stayed out about 6 months, and I had several local banks that needed experienced lenders. They had lenders, but they weren't seasoned, I guess is the word. So I took a job with First Community Bank here in Beckley as a lender. Great people. I still have a good relationship with it. That's where I wish I'd spent 38 years. It was just a totally different atmosphere. I had the best boss I've ever had. He still calls me today and says, Mike, we're having a Thanksgiving dinner. I want you to come and eat with us. Just a nice group of people. Wow. And that bank assigned me towards my last years. I was there 5 years. Actually, the Richmond, Virginia market. So think about that. I was originating loans in Richmond, Virginia, which was a much more lucrative market than Southern West Virginia. One mortgage up there would be 5 or 6 here in little old Raleigh County. So I met a lot of people that lived up there, and it was a good experience, great experience.
Now, you played music for different agendas. You were doing weddings and things like that all along.
Oh, yeah. I hope I never do another wedding again.
You got into the community concert type stuff?
I used to be on the board of the Community Concert Association, and back in those years, we were truly a classical music organization. They've kind of changed their train of thought there on shows and programs that they do.
We got to survive.
Well, I guess we do. But I'm not saying, I guess I am saying I prefer a classical association. I appreciate that music more than I do the modern things, because I hope, Wayne, I have an understanding of what it takes to produce it. When I sit in church and I can't help it, I listen carefully to who's playing the organ or the keyboard or whatever they're doing. I'm sure I recognize things that people who are not musically trained don't. And it seems to me the trend today is people want to go with more of a praise and worship music, and that's just not what I enjoy doing. There's 3 guys up there with guitars and microphones all looking at each other trying to decide who's going to start playing first. That's just not what I prefer.
Now, you've played at Chuck Mathena Auditorium.
I have.
You've played at the Concord Music Hall there. You've played a little bit everywhere.
Yeah, I did.
You ever thought about turning pro, trying to make a living?
I'm not nearly good enough to turn pro.
You don't think?
Oh, no. I can get you through a church service. I've accompanied lots of choirs every now and then. If Concord needs somebody to play the organ, Dan Spurgeon and I will go down and help them out. The Chuck Mathena gigs I've done have been for fundraisers. So I'll take my buddy with me, Martha Hutchinson, who is just a fantastic piano player. She, for many, many years, was one of the pianists that played at the Greenbrier Hotel. So she'd be sitting out in the lobby playing the piano with a violin player during tea time. My uncle was a CSX employee, and every now and then I would go to the Greenbrier and play for maybe some of the private parties that he did, but I was never good enough to do main dining room or tea time. That you had to be good then, and they preferred a lot of classical.
Yeah. Well, there's not too many people around from the Beckley area that have made a living and stayed in West Virginia. I mean, John Urich used to do it, and Danny Bailey's done, but they've had to teach a lot, and that's where the primary income was coming in, because Beckley would be, and even Danny. We've had Danny on our podcast before, and he said you got to be extremely creative to make a living in music in southern West Virginia.
Well, you do, because there's not as many opportunities to do smaller venues. We don't have that around here.
Yeah. And you mentioned fundraising. You've been involved in fundraising. It started Dollars for Scholars back in high school.
Yeah, back in high school we used to do that program. It's not something I like to do, but I guess because what I've done for so many years, I know who to contact.
Yeah.
I've got a lot of people that are very, very generous. When St. Francis de Sales needed a new pipe organ, I took on that project, and I said, yeah, we'll do it in 6 months. Well, it took me 2 years, but I got $225,000 to get a new pipe organ for that facility.
Wow. Are there any teachers or any adults or coaches or somebody like that's had a real influence on your life?
Well, there's one guy that I thought was pretty cool in high school. I was not athletic, but his name was Wayne Bennett. And I thought he was a very nice guy. Kids liked him. I think you, like my mother, demanded respect, but you knew how to do it in a way that children would respond. I always thought the world of my senior English teacher. Her name was Ann Dye.
Oh, yeah.
I liked Ann. She was a pretty lady. She made it interesting. I've got guys that I say used to give me a hard time all the way, and I would give it right back to him, and that was Jeff Britton. You remember Jeff? Jeff was pretty tough. Yeah. I mean, I liked him. I learned. And my 9th grade algebra teacher was Mrs. Wright, and I learned a lot from her.
I remember her.
Yeah. She was a great lady.
Yeah. Jeff Britton, I had Jeff in school myself. And then when I started teaching at Woodrow, I was in the English department, and he was the head of the English department.
Oh, okay.
And it was kind of funny. I think some of the English teachers, we intentionally kind of drove him crazy because he wanted to treat us sometimes like kids, and it didn't work out quite that way. Yeah. But he was, he wasn't afraid to work.
No, he wasn't, and you learned how to learn, and I think that's a process.
Now, you mentioned Ann Dye. When I first went to Woodrow, Miss Jarrett was across the hall from me, and Ann Dye was beside of me, and I was a fresh English teacher, just out of first time in high school. I'd been in elementary school for a year and a half, but they kind of took me under their wing.
Okay. And wasn't the economics teacher Rosie Peck? Do you remember Rosie?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So Rosie was good to me and my family, and that's where I spent most of my lunchtime, in her room eating.
Now, Rosie went on and had Old Mountain Trader or something. Didn't she create that?
I don't recall. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think she's the one that came up with the original idea, and then, of course, sold it later on and did quite well. Now, you got into the real estate somewhere along the line, didn't you?
There were many years that I had a real estate license. Yes, I did, back in the early days. And then basically what I did as an employee of the bank, they wanted us to participate in community activities, and I served as their treasurer for a long time. But then what happened, and I'm not saying I disagree with it, but things changed up. If you were in lending, you could not keep an active real estate license. So I had to put it in escrow. And recently I've been giving some serious thought into taking that out. I need something to do, Wayne. But I don't want to 8 to 5 or whatever every day.
The real estate business has changed a lot.
Oh, it's changed tremendously, especially with new regulation has changed up with disclosure law concerning commissions, and you have to be careful.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I was in the real estate business for about 7 years, and back in the 90s, and it was starting to change some when I got out, and I was one of the few people that I was still teaching school and doing real estate part-time, but I was one of the few people that quit because I got too busy.
Yes, right, sure.
I mean, I was going out 7 days a week, Sunday mornings, nights, and it got to a point that I wasn't spending any time with my family. And I said, money's not worth it.
Something needs to change.
And so I decided to get out of there. But you worked for Charlotte Lilly for a while, didn't you?
I did. My license was with Charlotte Lilly.
She was a great person.
Charlotte was a wonderful lady. I learned a lot from Charlotte. A lot of people, a lot of the realtors looked up to Charlotte. I mean, she was in the business for a long, long time, but that was Our House Realty at the time. That's the only real estate company that ever held my license.
Now, I remember watching public television, and they would have the call-ins, the fundraisers, and there you were almost at every one that I remember seeing.
I was on West Virginia Public Broadcasting Board for over 30 years. 1-800-456-3488 is the number to call. And if you call today, and I'm sure that number has changed up because pledge is very different, but really what I will tell you, when we were pledging from Grandview, I guess the idea or the theory was if someone in your community sees you and recognizes you, they're going to be more likely to support West Virginia Public Broadcasting. And there was, I would always get Saturday Night with Lawrence Welk. Lawrence Welk was a popular show. And I can say that depending on who I was pledging, we could bring in $6,000 a night. We were the A team. Mm-hmm. But then it changed up, pledge. They decided that it needs to be centrally located, and it went to Charleston. We'd go down to the studio on Capitol Street and pledge there. Then it switched up to Morgantown. Now I think they outsource. I'm no longer on the board, so I don't know for sure, but it's a different process now.
I haven't even seen it in recent years.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know for sure that they were still doing that. I know that there has been some controversy. SB 844, are you familiar with that?
No.
You're not. It's where the state was going to take it over and just have one person in charge. Mm-hmm. And I don't know all the little particulars.
Well, state funding has declined a lot through the years, with what West Virginia Public Broadcasting used to receive with the support they would give Theater West Virginia. It's just a different game today.
Yeah. And controversy was that the people who had been helping raise money for public television said that if it looks like the state's funding all of it, nobody will donate anything. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't the case at all. The state was only giving like a certain percentage.
Yeah.
And it was, you have been involved in some other, I remember reading one time about flooding at Pine Hills, that you were involved in some kind of...
Well, I used to live at Pine Hills in those condominium areas. And I was, at the time, the head of the board, and I guess what you're referring to, there was an underground water drain pipe that collapsed. That was a lot of work to get fixed and replaced, but finally it did happen.
Now I know what your Sundays are like. What's a typical day for you?
A typical day for me. Well, I set the alarm at 6:30. I don't always get up. I do like to read. I always don't get out. I'll get up and go through the morning routine. A whole lot of times I'll flop back in bed and read. I like to read, but if I do it at night, I fall asleep. Tuesdays, I'll volunteer at Helping Hands, which is in downtown Beckley, and that's till lunchtime. I have a couple choir practices I have to go to from where I play. That's the one thing I dislike. I don't mind playing on Sunday, but I do not like going to choir practice.
Yeah.
But you have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you still involved with community chorus?
Yes. Yes. I don't know that we're going to do a concert this Christmas, but Dan Spurgeon is the director, and we do have an event we're going to be doing this year. He has brought together a lot of local churches, bringing church choirs together, and also anyone in the community that wants to come and sing. You don't have to be a church member in a church choir. We're going to do a performance at Woodrow Wilson Auditorium. I don't know the date in December he selected, but it'll be in December. We're now Dan's working on getting together orchestration, an orchestra that will participate. And there's no pipe organ out there, but we're going to try to use the piano and just hopefully make a nice Christmas concert. Utilize that orchestra pit, put the orchestra down in the pit and have everybody else up on the stage. Although I don't think that piano will fit in the pit. It'll probably remain on the stage. It'll fit, but you can't get anything else down there.
Yeah. Well, now the Farris family has been very active in donating and setting up funds with the Beckley Area Foundation. I know there's one in Fred's name, I think.
I established a fund in Fred's name.
And there's one in Evelyn.
Elmer, Isabel, Evelyn, and Fred all have funds I established with their money. I mean, I didn't establish it with my money.
Yeah.
But
And those are all unrestricted, aren't they?
They are unrestricted because a lot of time, for many years, I worked as a volunteer with the Beckley Area Foundation, and I wasn't on the committee that could vote. But what I would do when they were selecting grants is keep a list on the tabs of, oh, well, you've used up all the money in that category. We need to go on to the next one. A lot of those funds are restricted. But I know from doing that unrestricted funds are needed. And, my aunts and uncles felt strongly about supporting their local community and local churches. They felt that's what you need to do. And merchants, you bought from local merchants anytime you could. You needed to support them. Support the people that support you.
In a few of the fundraisers I've had over the years, our groups were recipients of unrestricted funds, and it couldn't have come at a better time.
Well, that's wonderful,
and I feel the same way you do. Our family has set up an unrestricted fund group with Beckley Area Foundation, and not anything against restricted funds. Any donation is good, but sometimes you need the freedom to spend that money, and not be restricted to a certain category. Well, what's in the immediate future for you?
For Mike?
Yeah.
Well, I hope I can continue to ride my bike. I enjoy doing that. I hope I can continue to play in church. I enjoy doing it. The congregations are very kind to me. I mean, they're just very, very kind, very responsive. I enjoy the music. I don't mind practicing for organ. I don't like dealing with choirs, but that's part of the process. You just have to learn to do that. And I think it gets a little difficult when you are trying to accompany a choir. And a lot of the newer church music, people want to use tapes or recordings. Well, that's okay, but my opinion on that is they're not forgiving at all. And if I'm accompanying you and you messed up a little bit, I can make you look good. I can go back and repeat a phrase or do whatever I need to do to help pull you through that. You can't do that with a recording, but that takes a knack. You need to learn how to do it. I want to do that. I enjoy travel, but I don't want to go far. I have no desire to leave the country right now.
Yeah.
But
I was going to ask you if you've ever been to Lebanon.
I have not, no.
Don't want to go now.
No.
No.
No, the way I look, I probably wouldn't get back out of there. I tease my friends when we're traveling and we go through airports. I say, don't you go ahead in front of me. Don't stay with me, because a whole lot of times when they see that Lebanese name, I got a big nose, I grow a beard, I shave my head down, I get pulled out of the line. It happens frequently.
Wow.
And I say, if they know you're traveling with me, they're gonna do that. I get pulled. I've been strip searched. They've detained me so long in the past that I've missed my connecting flight. It's just, that's what they do.
Yeah.
And it doesn't bother me. I mean, I'm used to it.
Yeah. It's well, Mike, the Farris family has been a major contributor to our community.
Well, thank you.
And I know there are a lot of people that are interested in how things got started. And now you do have a cousin, Gus, who has got the same name as your grandfather, and Gus is your cousin, I guess.
Gus is my first cousin.
And he's I wanted to mention, he was a pretty good singer at one time. I don't know whether he still sings. And your sister, Emily, I've heard her sing at a couple of weddings.
Yes.
And so the talent runs in the family.
She still sings every Sunday at church. Gus, I don't know that Gus sings so much as he used to. He, at one point in time, actually moved to Florida and was doing some singing down there when he was young.
Wow. Well, maybe the next time we have you on our podcast, we can get to have it at a place where you can play a little music for us. And I'd love to get you there.
Well, I play the piano. I play an organ now. I used to play the violin. I was never good. I would tell you that 19 of them in the symphony had to have the flu before they'd call me. But I don't do that.
Well, we do appreciate you coming and talking to us. And is there anything else you'd like to mention?
I thank you for having me. It's great to see you.
And it's great to see you. And you're welcome to come back anytime.
Thank you.
And anyone else that would like to be on our podcast, you're welcome to be here. And you can contact me at awbennett50@gmail.com. And remember, until then, if you're not dead yet, you're not done yet. God bless you.